Good morning. I am Jenny Gimignani. I'll be your service coordinator today. We have Reverend Cynthia. Jesse is our Zoom host with Karen as our co-host. And Sandy would normally be in our sanctuary, but for her safety, we wanted her to stay safe and snug at home. So Jesse will be our chalice lighter and Joys and Concerns candle lighter as well. Happy Valentine's Day to all of you. And let us create a sacred space where we gather together in spirit. We'll start with our chalice lighting. And today it comes from Kimberly Ann Tomzak Carlson. It's called A Place of Belonging and Caring. It is not by chance that you arrived here today. You have been looking for something larger than yourself. Inside of you, there is a yearning, a calling, a hope for more, a desire for a place of belonging and caring. Through your struggles, someone nurtured you into being, instilling a belief in a shared purpose, a common yet precious resource that belongs to all of us when we share. And so you began seeking a beloved community, a people that do not put fences around love, a community that holds its arms open to possibilities of love, a heart home to nourish your soul and share your gifts. Welcome home and welcome to worship. We say it every week, but as I was working on the script this week, I realized how much I mean it. When I need help, the people I reach out to are people from this congregation. My sources of comfort and support are from this congregation. This congregation has expanded my family. You are my people. We are your people. Or if you are new to us, we hope you'll learn more to decide if we can be your people too. We are here for each other, and you can reach out to Reverend Cynthia in all the ways on the screen. Most immediately, you can see how to reach her on her cell phone at 859-221-3034 and leave a text if you're not able to get her on the phone. About once a week, we receive an inquiry from someone interested in the congregation and in learning about Unitarian Universalism. And we're getting lots of new likes on Facebook. So for those of us who have been around for a while, you might get tired of the service coordinators explaining a little bit about being a UU each week. But for folks who don't know anything about us or who may have had a difficult experience with other religions, imagine the joy in hearing us say, to be UU, you don't have to swear to believe any one thing. As a UU, we are not here to tell you what your truth is. Unitarian Universalist congregations affirm and promote 7 principles, which we hold as strong values and moral guides. But we also will make you question your answers. And in our congregation, we have a covenant created by us, by the folks here, that outlines how we treat each other. If you are new to GNUUC or if you were a founder, it doesn't matter. If these words hold meaning for you, please read them with me. We covenant together to make a welcoming community, to walk together in the way of truth and love, to seek the life of the Spirit as it is known by each person, to support each other in thought, word, and deed as we work to build a better world. For our opening today, we have a beautiful, soothing song called Go as a River. Please join in as you feel so moved.
peace, love, and clarity. Our friends with strength or spirituality are wonderful to be able to see that we are all water, that we are all water, that we are all water, that we are all water.
I love their joy at the end. That's so awesome. Today's Time for All Sages is about the two wolves we hold inside. And this is a story that I think many of us have probably heard before. But as I watched the video again in preparation for today, I was reminded, especially with all the events that have been going on in our world, this is a song I need to hear again and again and again. Possibly it's the same for you too. Enjoy.
There is a story, usually attributed to the Native American tradition, which illuminates different ways of paying attention. An elder, talking to a child, says, "I have two wolves fighting in my heart. One wolf is fearful, vengeful, envious, resentful, and deceitful. The other wolf is compassionate, loving, generous, truthful, and peaceful." The child asks, "Which wolf will win the fight?" The elder responds, "The one I feed." That doesn't mean we try to deny or hurt or kill the angry wolf. If we did that, we'd end up in a long battle, all the while somehow making that wolf more powerful through our hostility and fear. Hating that wolf sucks the strength right out of us. Instead, we calmly pay attention to the angry wolf and let go of believing they have the answers. If we can do that, they end up lying down next to us, no longer an enemy. We help strengthen the kind and loving wolf, giving it nourishment and support so that we can follow it. That peaceful wolf can become our steady companion and show us the way through all kinds of different life experiences. Restful or chaotic, enjoyable or disappointing experiences may come and go, but we can have a guide with us through it all. This is what mindfulness can help you do. Mindfulness allows us to see our thoughts and feelings as they are beginning. It's very powerful to know what we're feeling as we're feeling it, know what we're thinking as we're thinking it. With mindfulness, we can choose what will strengthen and bring into action, and we can choose what we will gently let go of. We don't have to be at the mercy of old habits or old ways of thinking or old ways of being. We are empowered. It just takes practice.
And up next, enjoy this take on a song you'll recognize with slightly different words.
Come and sit by my side if you're lonely. Close your eyes, drink some tea together. Breathing in, breathing out, smile and come. You will feel that our life is so true. Come and sit by my side when you're tired. Close your eyes, put your hand on your heart. Breathing in, breathing out, smile and come. You will will feel that our life is so true. Come and sit by my side if you cry. Close your eyes, put your hands on the earth. Breathing in, breathing out, smile and come. You will feel that the life is happy. Come and sit by my side if you're lonely. Close your eyes, drink some tea together. Breathing in, breathing out, smile and come. You will feel that our life is so true. Come and sit by my side when you're tired. Close your eye, put your hand on your heart. Breathing in, breathing out, smile and come. You will feel that our life is so true. Come and sit by my side if you cry. Close your eyes, put your hands on the earth. Breathing in, breathing out, smile and come. You will feel that the life is happy.
I hope it's the same for all of you. I can feel my heart starting to slow down and my breath starting to deepen and calmness starting to come over me. Next up, we have our Share the Plate partner for February, and it's the Tennessee Justice Center. I was reading over their website, and their front page statement has echoes of our own 7 principles. The Tennessee Justice Center believes that diversity, equity, and inclusion are intrinsically valuable and necessary to manifest our mission of justice for all. We recognize that racism is foundational to the social and economic disparities that plague our nation. We work to achieve opportunity, security, and dignity for all Tennesseans. We are committed to expanding and continuing our advocacy, education, and litigation work as a means toward greater equity. As you will see on the screen, there are multiple ways to send in your donation. For those of you that have already set up your automatic donations, or those of you that text in your donations, thank you so much for your support. For those of you that mail in your checks, every single dollar is so appreciated. If you are used to sending in a paper check, we do have a new address where they're being mailed. So if you could please email gnuuc@gnuuc.org for that information. That would be perfect. And now a short video from the Tennessee Justice Center.
Tennessee has always played an important role in America's story, with hard-won gains in the state helping to advance human rights and social justice in the nation.
Tennessee is the first state where freedmen fought for and won the right to vote. The state that made women's suffrage part of our Constitution, the place where important labor battles were fought, and a crucible that shaped the leaders of the civil rights movement. These gains would have never been won without dedicated, determined, and effective advocacy. That still holds true today.
For nearly a quarter century, the Tennessee Justice Center's mission has been to make justice and equal opportunity a reality for all Tennesseans. TJC advocates for and with Tennessee families who are confronting poverty and injustice. TJC helps their voices be heard in the state bureaucracy, in the courts, and in the state legislature.
TJC bridges challenging political divisions by framing issues of justice, including access to food, healthcare, and opportunity in terms of shared values and common concerns, by amplifying clients' powerful stories to convey the impact of bad policies on real people. A small organization with a high profile, TJC has been punching above its weight for years. In collaboration with state and national partners, TJC has won court victories and legislative campaigns that have touched millions of lives. TJC's impact covers an age span from improving prenatal care to creating services that enable frail seniors to retain dignity and independence. Politicians complain TJC has compelled the state to provide billions of dollars in health care, nutrition assistance, and income supports to the state's most vulnerable families. Guilty as charged. Resilient and adaptive, TJC is in it for the long haul. Our ambition is nothing less than to move this influential state so that our public policies reflect the best values of our people. As we do, TJC will help Tennessee continue to contribute to the national project of creating a more perfect union for all. Liberty and justice for y'all.
So before we have the meditation, I just want to say a few words. The meditation introduces you to the 5 mental hindrances, and I'll be going over those again in the sermon. They're a lot to take in at one time. But I think the Time for All Sages is a great tool. If you find that 1 or 2 or all of those hindrances are things that you can see in yourself, well, that's good. Join the human race. We all can. But the clue in the Time for All Sages is don't push it away. Don't try to get rid of that other wolf. Just go with the things that are working for you. Go with the loving, go with the compassion, and don't pay attention to the other one, but don't put all your energy to shaming yourself or feeling guilty or feeling upset that you've ever had any of these hindrances. That's very, very important. And so during this meditation, just see if any of these feel like they apply to you, but don't go into a mental state of like, that's me, and I'm not a good Buddhist or a good person. We all have these hindrances. Enjoy the meditation and some silence.
The 5 mental hindrances cloud your mind, in effect, weakening it. They dilute your ability to progress in meditation and in life. Sensual desire is the excessive seeking after of pleasure through your five senses. The Buddha considered your mind as your sixth sense, and that your other five senses live in the domain of your mind. As a result, through your mind, the world of form proliferates, resulting in a thirst and craving for what seems to be satisfying, yet is really a sense addiction that misleads you from your true path. Ill will is thoughts and actions of hostility, dislike, and hatred towards others, and even towards yourself. Sloth and torpor are the disinclination towards exertion, the inclination towards inaction and sleep, apathetic, indolent, and lazy behavior, especially mental behavior. Restlessness and remorse is perpetual agitation and regret, unable to attain inner or outer peace and calm. If afflicted and peace does arise, it doesn't last. Doubt is uncertainty and apprehension regarding the understanding of the Buddha's teachings and how to apply them in meditation and life. It is also uncertainty as to what to believe on the path of life. The five hindrances are identified as such because they impede and prevent one's mind from being fully developed. They disrupt your ability to cultivate deep concentration and insight, making your progress very difficult. How do you overcome the mental hindrances so that you can walk the path to peace, wisdom, and awakening unimpeded? As the Buddha says, you fully develop mindfulness. This is how you conquer the five hindrances.
So here we are. It's Valentine's Day, and I think that's my least favorite holiday. but we'll forge on ahead. And we're actually talking about love. We're talking about the beloved community, and that has really got a very specific reference, and is from the scriptures, but it came into use more widely because of Martin Luther King. So I think that's why we're talking about it at this time of year. We got a little introduction to the 5 hindrances of Buddhism, and Buddhism has, 4 this, 8 that, 5 this, 7 that, and it's a lot more complicated than Unitarian Universalism, which just has the 7 principles and the 6 sources, although we're now looking at an 8th principle. I thought about the 5 hindrances, one, because I've been working with them, with my teachers, and they're new, unexplored territory for me, some of them, at least in that form. And I thought you might like to work with them too. But also, when I read this quote, which applies to community, your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it, and embrace them. And that is a quote from Rumi, translated from Rumi. It's a conundrum. It's like a koan. Find the barriers within yourself that you've erected and embrace them. So let's go ahead and think about the hindrances. So, as I said, it's a celebration of romantic love today, but let's face it, romantic love is, if we're lucky, we experience it, but also it's fleeting. And what matters most in our lives is agape, the love for humankind. Love that comes from a spiritual practice, spiritual community, or from a well of compassion. And we have to dig that well. We have to keep that well going. It doesn't just automatically happen. That's the kind of love that has kept you returning to this community during all this time, returning on your laptops and your iPads and your phones to one another. Community is not easy. Somebody once said, community is the place where the person you least want to live with always lives. Henri Nouwen, a French priest, Canadian French, he said, in Jesus' community of 12 apostles, the last name was that of someone who was going to betray him. That person is always in your community somewhere. In the eyes of others, you might be that person. I can remember when I first realized that, I hope I didn't betray anyone, but I have disappointed people. I know that. And maybe it was their expectations, but maybe it was just my failure. And I remember when I came to a certain age and realized that I was the person who was in community, and I was the person that someone least wanted to be with. It was quite shocking because I thought I was likable and that most everybody liked me except for my ex-husband. Not so. So think a little bit, just take a moment now. I asked you this in the e-blast, but in case you haven't done it yet, think about the communities to which you belong, and I'll tell you some of mine. Greater Nashville Congregation, Unitarian Universalism, people who have migraines, erstwhile Appalachian Trail hikers, jazzercisers, 12-step programmers, fiction writers, I should say erstwhile published writers, the Leyte League leaders, emergency medical technicians, Scots-Irish people, Democrats, parents, autism families, gardeners, spiritual directors, English majors, grandparents, people who like to smell books, people who can roll their tongues. That's genetic. Twins, people from South Jersey, erstwhile Buddhists, and UU ministers. There may be more. In Buddhist practice, the congregation is called the Sangha. There are many similarities, and there are some important differences. Most people don't know that Martin Luther King and Thich Nhat Hanh, who really brought Buddhist practice to the West, knew one another, and they met together a number of times. These meetings were the source of many of their philosophies. In other words, they both learned from one another. And in fact, it was Martin Luther King who brought the concept of the beloved community, in part from his meetings with the Buddhist teacher, to civil rights, and it was Martin Luther King who nominated Thich Nhat Hanh for the Nobel Peace Prize. So they were friends, something we don't often hear. Like a congregation, the Sangha, the Buddhist Sangha, meets regularly, engages in practice and ritual, and follows agreed upon principles. We would call that our covenant, but in the Buddhist Sangha, there are principles or agreements. And the Sangha is necessary in order to be a Buddhist. You have to have the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And those are like the three legs of a three-legged stool. So if one is missing, the stool won't stay up. It'll fall over. And so meeting regularly with other people to practice your Buddhist meditation and also to talk about your practice, that is essential to being a Buddhist practitioner. And I told you, I'm an erstwhile Buddhist. So in both of these, community is the place where the person you least want to live with always lives. And look, there's plenty of people who just don't join any communities because they don't want to deal with that. But they miss a big opportunity to grow. I used to tell the congregation in Lexington that the church was not a place to come, to be stroked or soothed or, to be with people who were all of like mind. In fact, the church was more like a laboratory where you were going to bang up against people. Sure, we're all religious liberals, but you were going to come up against people who annoyed you and who thought differently about things than you do. And that's partly what we're there for. It's like an experiment. An experiment in living. It's an opportunity to learn to be better humans and to be more loving, and also to take that out into the world. The most important similarity is that both the congregation, or the beloved community, and the Sangha are in existence to improve the mind, the spirit, and the well-being of their members, and through them, the greater community. We are here to make a difference to ourselves, to one another, and to the world around us. And again, many people have the misconception that Buddhist groups or sanghas are only about staring at your navel and looking inward and such. But really, any bodhisattva makes the vow not to enter nirvana or be enlightened until all people are enlightened. So there is always an element, once you've begun to deepen a Buddhist practice, always an element of service in the greater world. Now, none of this beloved community, Sangha, none of this is going to happen without discipline. It doesn't just happen because you light a chalice or say some fancy words. Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. And it sounds simple, but every person has to be working on that. And then we have to be faithful to one another and help each other, support one another in that journey. In Buddhism, the concept of the 5 hindrances is a tool for understanding what it is that holds the individual back from enlightenment. So today I'm going to apply these concepts to what we refer to as the beloved community, be it the congregation or other associations to which we belong. It works for many. So I'm talking about intentional community. Why do they disappoint us? Why do they often fail? Just a reminder, the 5 hindrances are sensual desire or sense desires, ill will, aversion, sloth and torpor, restlessness, anxiety, and 5, skepticism or doubt. It's important to realize that all these hindrances come about because of a sense of separate identity, because of the inability to acknowledge that we are all part of one system. We are all part of one another and also part of the natural systems that surround us. There really is not separation like we are led to believe. It's also significant that we are descended from, as Unitarian Universalists, and still remain a peculiarly individualistic faith. We really emphasize that in our worship and in our gatherings. A faith with a history and a theology that celebrates our own personal freedom, sometimes to the exclusion of our communal responsibility. We're all about, freedom of speech and Emerson and Thoreau and the self-reliance kind of stuff. Sensual desire is the desire for pleasant states of mind, sounds, smells, tastes, and bodily comfort. It's the elevation of the senses over enlightenment. In Sangha or community, it may take the form of elevating the externals over the relationships and interbeing that we strive to embody. The outward aesthetics of decor, music, physical attractiveness, even food, come to dominate our relationship to the community. Sometimes clergy refer to this as the edifice complex, and after working with the New Jersey congregation for 2 years, I had to tell them before I left that they really had the edifice complex. They had built this magnificent, environmentally friendly building, and all the stories about themselves were about how they built it, how they worked together, all the things that they did themselves, painted and put up drywall and so forth. And it was their story. It was a wonderful, heroic, communal story. But 10 years on, they needed to start to create some new stories and go out into the community, and they have done. Jack Kornfield, Buddhist teacher, he writes, "The energy of desire keeps us moving, looking for that thing that is really going to do it for us. The wanting mind is itself painful. It's a self-perpetuating habit that does not allow us to be where we are because we are grasping for something somewhere else. Even when we get what we want, we then want something more or different because the habit of wanting is so strong. It's a sense that being here and now is not enough, that we are somehow incomplete, and it keeps us cut off from the joy of our own natural completeness. We are never content. It's the same force in the world at large that creates the havoc of people wanting and consuming, hoarding and fighting wars to have more and more, for pleasure and for security that are never fulfilled. And I think my dog Whiskey wants to go outside and bark at something right now. Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it and embrace them. A not so intentional group that I belong to is people with severe migraines, or there actually is a fancy word for us, migraineurs. Until this year, this was a completely amorphous and invisible group. I knew there was a certain percentage of people who had chronic migraines, but I had only ever met 5 or 10 people. I was so excited when I met you, Fran, because you had suffered that same way. Of late, there have been a lot of online Facebook and discussion groups of people with chronic migraine talking about the new therapies and comparing notes about what they have tried, what's worked, and so forth and so on. It's really a very eclectic science, and you just have to keep trying different things yourself. Nobody knows what really causes them or what works. I found this group so affirming after years of family and in-laws and other people doubting things could possibly be this bad. And I kind of understand it, but it was painful, always giving me helpful advice. Like if you get your ear pierced over here, something like that, get a nose ring or hang upside down, that's what so-and-so did. But in the group, I met or saw so many people that had been through exactly my experience. So it is a kind of a community. But what happened several weeks ago is that a discussion started about what is the best pillow to use. You might know where I'm going. Because a lot of times the neck and the discomfort in the neck is tied in as a trigger for migraines. It's not the cause of your chronic migraines, but it can trigger one. So it's a big deal how you sleep and stuff. But over and over, people were writing in this Facebook group, it's My Pillow. My Pillow is the one, I'm talking about the brand name, My Pillow. It's the one that works. And then somebody said, and also, I love it because I really love Mike Lindell and what he's fighting for. I was like, no, my fellow migraineurs cannot be people who think this guy that met with Trump. No, please tell me it's not true. Someone wrote, I went right out and bought 10 My Pillows to give to people just to support Mike Lindell. And all my fantasies of finding a community were just quashed. They were quashed. I admit I had so much aversion to this that I wanted to stop visiting the migraine community. So that's where aversion and ill will can come out. And, you have it within you and you recognize it. You see it. It's a barrier to love. So what do we do when we become part of a covenanted community and discover that others in our midst have quite different views on some things we find essential? Well, remember, our task is not to seek for love. It's to merely seek and find the barriers within ourselves that we have built against it. The third hindrance is sloth and torpor. If anybody has made it through this pandemic without getting affected by these, then I applaud you. It's really hard when you get lazy and just lose your incentive to do the things you're supposed to do, like exercise, for example. I love to exercise. I really love to dance, and I like to do jazzercise. But even though you can now do jazzercise online, you wouldn't believe the excuses I can come up with some days. It's too hot in here. The wood stove is going. Oh my gosh, the last couple days there was ice and we couldn't get reception. That's sloth and torpor. And what happens is sloth leads to torpor. It's like a vicious cycle, and it kind of winds down until it's hard to get moving in the right direction and doing that exercise or whatever it is we need to do every day. Then there's restlessness. Restlessness has a lot to do with anxiety and worry. And it really is a barrier to beloved community and to love. Carl Jung describes a very interesting dialogue he had in 1924 with an American Indian chief. The chief was describing to white men, their eyes have a staring expression. He said, they're always seeking something. What are they seeking? The whites always want something. They're always uneasy and restless. We don't know what they want. We don't understand them. We think they're mad. Jung asked why the chief thought white men were mad, and his response was, they say they think with their heads. Jung was surprised and asked, well, what do you think with? And the chief's response was, we think here, and he pointed to his heart. A lot of Buddhism is really a psychology, and it is a mind exercise, but it's also about uniting the mind, the body, and the spirit, and bringing those together to serve us and those around us. This conversation had a profound effect on Jung. You can see it in his writings. The truth is that when we think with our heads and we're not connected to our hearts, we're dominated by fear. And that can really affect the communities that we're a part of. Dominated by fear, by a sense of separateness, the need to possess, violate, and dominate. It's not until we evolve to use these good minds, but have them informed by our hearts, that we can have access to relatedness and beloved community. And that quote was from Tara Brach, also a Buddhist teacher. Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. So then doubt. Where does doubt arise for you? Doubt is a lack of trust, and many of us bring that from former experiences where we were betrayed by people that we should have been able to trust. It's a lack of faith. In beloved community, this can show up as conflict, as cliques who refuse to listen to one another, as secret meetings, parking lot decisions. Those are something the ministers are most afraid of, parking lot meetings. It's essentially a lack of love. Love primarily for ourselves. The amazing thing about agape, holy love, is that as we learn to love, trust, and regard ourselves, our relationships improve and our compassion for others grows. It's almost miraculous. Nelson Mandela said, no one is born hating another person because of the color of their skin, or their background, or their religion. That's true. No one's born. People must learn to hate, and if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love, for love comes more naturally to the human heart than its opposite. Even in the grimmest times in prison, when our comrades and I were pushed to our limits, I would see a glimmer of humanity in one of the guards, perhaps just for a second. But it was enough to reassure me and keep me going. Human goodness is a flame that can be hidden, but never extinguished. So here's your koan, something for you to turn around in your mind and puzzle on. And by the way, I love all of you so much. You are a wonderful, beloved community. I'm just so impressed by how you have been there for one another and how you show up. Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it and embrace them.
Thank you so much, Reverend Cynthia, for this reminder about how to find the best in ourselves, which allows us to reach out for the best in each other. Picking which wolf we'll feed, right? So thank you again. And we love you too. Makes it nice. So today, my dear loved ones, it's the time for our joys and concerns. And Jesse is going to be multitasking for us today, which he does pretty much every Sunday for us. He will be the one calling on the person who has a joy or concern to share. And then he's also going to light a candle to recognize those joys and concerns that we choose to share. Jesse, would you like to take over explaining? Oh, and we have to end our YouTube stream. I apologize. Thank you to those of you